With about 8 months to go before a single vote cast, Donald Trump is already claiming that November's presidential election will be rigged against him. And you definitely can laugh at that. But at the same time, it's adding to everything that he's bringing to the table in terms of his fascist tendencies. In recent campaign speeches, not only has Trump continued to push the big lie about the last election, but he is planting seeds to make the same false claims about the next one. That includes using the phrase too big to rig, based on the idea that he needs a lead so large in November that no fraudulent activity can erase it. But as the Wall Street Journal writes, that line presents some serious messaging challenges for Republicans, because even as Trump warns the voting process will be rigged in November, he is urging his supporters to participate in it anyway. The paper notes the former president also needs to appeal to moderate and swing voters, yet they could be turned off by his drumbeat of election fraud claims. And while the Republican Party as a whole has made major efforts to encourage mail-in and early voting this cycle, Trump himself continues to deride those voting methods, Brian, even though that's the way he voted numerous times. And talk to us, if you could, Brian, in the concept of even your book, how this, again, is all part of a dangerous momentum that Trump is hoping to build up as he continues to, march forward in this presidential election, despite, you would think, for any other person, any other candidate on earth, one of his legal challenges would bring him down.
Yeah, I mean, we have all the ingredients for something really profound and major to happen around this election that would be disastrous for American democracy and also for the risk of violence. I mean, you have an extremist candidate at the top of the ticket who is inciting violence routinely. You have extremists in the base who are being told that their political opponents are vermin or enemies of the state, and that people who attacked the Capitol are patriots or hostages, even though they have been convicted of crimes and have gone to jail for it. And so, all of this stuff, one of the key points that anyone who studies political violence, as I do, will tell you is that you do not need 30% of the population to be galvanized by this extremism. You need a small percentage to create massive effects. And that's the issue, right? That a relatively small number of extremists, even if 1% of Trump's base decides to act, you could have very dangerous outcomes around this election. And so I think, at the moment when we have the highest need for a person to show restraint and use judicious, word choice, we have the most reckless candidate in the history of the United States on the top of the Republican Party. And so, I worry that we've been lucky so far, honestly. I think that everything that could go wrong in terms of the sort of groundwork for political violence has gone wrong. And yet we haven't had as many catastrophic consequences as we could. And so is that luck at some point going to run out? I hope not. But, we couldn't say we weren't warned. This is incredibly, incredibly obvious that what Trump is doing is just pouring gasoline on the fire of the American psyche, particularly in the extremist political right, every single day that he's on the campaign trail.
Brian, I wonder, given your extensive research into political violence, this is not the first time that we've experienced political violence. Even in the United States, this was a feature of our system until the Civil Rights Movement. And of course, other countries have had to deal with it as well. So how are the rest of us to respond? Those of us who are committed to American democracy, and not just average people and journalists, but actually institutions. What are specific people supposed to be doing at this point to safeguard this system and the democracy?
Yeah, I mean, the lessons of history are that when you lose democracy, rebuilding it is way harder than saving it while you have it. And so that's where you have to have institutions, political discourse that's tied to a big tent, which I think is, it's crucial when we talk about these things, that there are so many people in this country that disagree on healthcare or taxes, but agree that democracy is important, that agree that politicians should be held to higher standards than the rest of us rather than lower standards. And I think, what we've seen over the last 8 years is just a warping of the political fabric of the country, where incitements to violence have become normalized.
Brian, let me just ask. You got billionaires who say, I can't support Donald Trump. He's just too offensive. January 6th, and then they come out and say, you know what, I'm going to support him after all. And how do you get from condemning January the 6th and understanding that he tried to overturn American democracy, tried to overturn an American presidential election. How do you get from that point to, I'll go ahead and support him anyway? I do wonder how this country, how so many people in this country have just turned their back on basic democratic concept. Because I guarantee you at this table, I guarantee you there are a lot of issues we don't agree on. I am a really conservative guy on the border, on you name, on a lot of things. And yet it's crystal clear to us. We'll sort out our differences. We'll figure out how to meet in the middle, and we'll do what this country's done for 240 years. All right, since 1965. But the question is, how, I want to say it politely. I can't. What happened in these people's lives? Because the lie is always, oh, you know what? These are like heroin addicts in Central Ohio. No, it's not. It's billionaires in Palm Beach.
Yep.
I'm so sick and tired of people going, oh, it's people. No, it's people driving around like they're Rolls Royces that made $50 million yesterday in the stock market, who are voting for a fascist, a guy who talks like a fascist, a guy who tried to overturn American democracy. They move to the Maldives if you don't want to pay the taxes, but don't help this guy get elected.
But the problem that they have, I think, that they're totally duped on, is they think that the crazy is going to stay in the crazy side of things and not going to infect the economy.
No.
But authoritarianism is really bad for business, right?
Can we dig down here for 1 second? Because you just brought up a great point.
Yeah.
Everybody, I think we made a mistake with these billionaires, because we've talked about how this is a threat to democracy. But Molly, and I will say, I'm a really conservative guy.
Yeah.
I like capitalism.
Right.
Capitalism works. Capitalism's worked in this country, and it has helped elevate more people out of poverty than any other system known to mankind. See, even I say mankind, my daughter would be so angry. So this is the thing they don't understand, and I don't think they understand it. That Trump is not just a threat to democracy. He's a threat to American capitalism, because he's a threat to the rule of law that any company that comes to the United States would tell you.
Yes.
They come here because they know the ground rules.
I say this as the granddaughter of a communist married to a venture capitalist, so I believe in capitalism too.
I just got dizzy.
That's just the cold.
It's a cold.
But
I am losing.
Yeah, you're turning blue.
I'm starting to have some visions. Mother.
But Trump doesn't believe in capitalism. He believes in crony capitalism,
right?
Which is not the same thing, right? His friends he elevates, and let's just say Trump was never a good businessman. So he's not elevating the best people. He's elevating his budget.
These billionaires know that, and a lot of these billionaires are self-made people that started out with nothing, and they've become very wealthy. And the bros in Silicon Valley are some of the most hostile people, I guess, to American capitalism, because they support the crony capitalists overwhelmingly.
Yes, and I would say history is littered with rich people who thought authoritarians would be okay to them. Right? I mean, we've seen this again and again throughout history. And I think when you talk about someone like Nelson Peltz, right, who has come out for...
I mentioned nobody's name, but but let's take Nelson Peltz.
He's done a whole...
Said he could never support Donald Trump.
Right. He did a whole media tour recently where he said now he does not want to vote for Biden because he feels that Biden is not as sharp as Donald Trump, which is a completely wild statement. And look, a lot of these people think that this crony capitalism will work for them. They'll get the tax cuts and they can keep going. I think history has proven that this is not how any of this works.
I mean, Trump has said, basically, I'm going to pick winners and losers. Yeah. If you are a company that's insufficiently loyal to me, I'm going to attack you.
Yeah, maybe some of them are acting out of fear. I don't know. But I just think it's pure selfishness, pure greed. And I think that there should be more social shaming about it. You know, if you're wealthy, you, more than any other voter, have the ability to just take one for the team. Right. If it, you know, how much money is enough, and vote for American democracy. And by the way, that is in your long-term best interest. So some of the short-term
see, that's the thing, Mark. They're not. Don't even say take one for the team. Help yourself.
Right.
This guy's a crony capitalist.
Or your grandkids.
Yeah, they don't think
they
that.
don't care about
Help
that.
yourself. Help your bottom line. Help your shareholders. Help your stock. This guy is not only going to be bad for American democracy, he's going to be terrible for American capitalism. That's the Wall Street Journal editorial page. They'll even say that.
Well, they're in denial, is all I can say. If they think, what's the phrase? If they think the goose steps are going to stop at their door.
Right.
They're in
So,
denial.
Brian, this is the big lie. He planted the seeds in 2016. He carried it out to fruition in 2020. He's going to do so again. And we have heard from those who used to work for him saying this man is dangerous. Members of his own cabinet renouncing him. And there was a really striking moment last week that I didn't think got nearly the pickup we all would have anticipated. His former vice president, Mike Pence, also a man who on the RNC stage did raise his hand and said, I'll support whoever the nominee is. But now that that nominee is Donald Trump, he says, I can't go there. That feels like it should really mean something, but yet to Trump supporters and to most Republicans and to many of these billionaires, it just doesn't.
Well, and, you know, Pence also, part of the reason why he didn't support him is because Trump incited a mob that wanted to kill him. Right. I mean, the level of what I call, you know, the banality of crazy that has taken root in this country is unbelievable, where things that would command weeks of coverage in any other administration are blips. And, you know, if any of this happened to Joe Biden, if even one person in his cabinet said he's a dangerous person, I mean, it would dominate the coverage for months.
Yeah. Right.
And what you need to find are the people who used to work for Trump who still support him. Those are hard to find. I mean, this is the kind of stuff where it should hopefully get through, but it doesn't. And I think when we think about the sort of dynamics heading into this election, it is a historic, I think the most important election in modern history, possibly in American history. And the stakes are so enormous, and we can't simply treat unprecedented craziness as though it's run-of-the-mill politics. It's not. And it's so much more dangerous. And there's nothing even remotely comparable where droves of people from the Biden administration are saying this man is dangerous. If they did, we would cover it with the duty and the sort of extensive, you know, attention that it warrants. For Trump, it's a fire hose of insanity. And it's difficult to keep up with it.
Ed Luce in the Financial Times last week wrote about the banality of chaos. And he said, that was a great column. He said, this is what's happened in the past 5 days. Why do I write this column? Because nobody else is going to remember this because of the banality of chaos. And yet, again, if Joe Biden's vice president, or if somebody that worked for Joe Biden said, anybody in a Senate, said, I'm not going to support this guy, his chief of staff in the Senate, there'd be, you know, headlines for weeks. Here, you have his vice president. How many Secretary of Defenses have said, I can't support this guy? How many Secretary of States that he said, I can't support this guy? His ambassador to the United Nations said, I can't support this guy. I mean, go on and on, Mika. It continues, and yet, people keep lining up to support him.
And that is where history, again, seems to be echoing, at least, to put it mildly.